Welcome to episode 5 of Marathon Talk, powered by Abbott World Marathon Majors. On this week's show, we'll be talking about the chain-smoking Chinese marathon runner, the man who helped save lives at the Monterey Half Marathon, the European Cross-Country Championships and how to use cross-country in your spring marathon build-up, and we'll be chatting to the incredible Gina Little, who's racked up 602 marathons and in Chicago in October became the oldest woman to bag an Abbott World Marathon Majors 6-star Finishers Medal.
Hi, Martin. How are you today?
I'm all right. I'm good. I've been actually dying to ask you this since we last recorded the show. How was the pumpkin cheesecake?
Oh, it was delicious. And the turkey trot was a success. I passed out 4 pumpkin cheesecakes, 2 to the winners and 2 raffled off, and 8 pumpkin breads. It was quite a feast for those at the finish line.
So do the people doing the turkey trot, do they know that they're going to get this home-baked pumpkin cheesecake made by you at the start?
They do. In fact, the guy that was second last year in our turkey trot was so determined to win a cheesecake and bring it to his Thanksgiving feast. And he ran second. And all year, he said he couldn't wait to redeem himself and win this year. And on the bike path, he was behind a gentleman and his dog. And apparently this Weimaraner was pulling this guy to the finish, and he finally found his way around and was able to pass and eventually redeemed himself and got his pumpkin cheesecake. So I was glad he fought for it.
Is it a little bit like my son? I took one of my sons to watch AFC Bournemouth, our local football club, at the weekend. And when the match had finished, he went down onto pitch side and he's like desperate to high-five the players. And then when he gets a high-five with one of the players, he came back and in the car on the way home, he goes, "I'm never washing my hand again." Is it a little bit like when people win the pumpkin cheesecake, they go, "I'm never going to eat this. I'm just going to keep this pumpkin cheesecake because it's been baked by you"? Or do they just trough it on the way home in the car?
It comes with a fork, so I hope they eat it. But we get a selfie, of course. We get selfies with it, and they can save that and eat the cheesecake and then win another one next year.
Yeah, and how was the race? How was the turkey trot itself? Was it a good Thanksgiving run? All go to plan?
It was great. So many people came dressed up and festive. We did a land acknowledgement because the Native Americans that lived there before, the Shoshone and the Paiute Indians, have really been great stewards of the land so that we can still appreciate it today in the Eastern Sierra. So it was amazing. It was an amazing day. And then I hosted a little more than a dozen people for dinner. So it was quite an exhausting day.
We can't go on with the show without talking about the football, not the American football, but the soccer. It's the World Cup in Qatar. And of course, recently we had in the qualification rounds, England versus the USA.
I totally thought I was going to have bragging rights on this call with you today. And both teams played great. Our friend Danny told us it was boring to watch. But just today, as we're recording, we've got to wrap it up because they're playing today. I think England is playing Wales and the US is Iran. So good games coming up today.
Yeah. And of course, well, you know, when the England team played Iran, it was an absolute stuffing. Right? Like England played brilliantly, 6-2 win. And we went into the match against the US thinking, well, we're going to take these Americans to pieces, aren't we? And it didn't happen. I think the England players were perhaps a little bit complacent, a little bit on the back foot. And the American team were so strong and so robust. And they just kept going and kept going and kept going. There was no let up. And of course, it ended up in a bit of a dull draw.
Yeah, but great. I think the playing is just so aggressive. I find myself like wincing a lot of the time. The players are just so defiant and tireless, and I guess they're the best of the best. So it shouldn't be that surprising. But what games we've seen so far.
Yeah, and how's your running? All okay? I'm going to have my own little bragging rights in a minute, but how's yours been?
Running's been great. Yeah, I feel like I could use some more challenges and a little more commitment. Today, I am in Austin, Texas, and I went from 8 feet of snow in Mammoth to 81 degrees and humid. So I just suffered this morning. It was so warm out after coming from cold, crisp air to run in warm humidity. Are you still on your 6 times 3 minutes?
Well, before you go on about how hot your run was, I said at the beginning of the show, I'm like in my Baltic shed, freezing cold at home. So running is helping keeping me warm. And I went down to my local park run in Poole and had a tilt. Now, I haven't told you, have I yet, what my finish time was?
No, but I think, have you just...
So I'm going to challenge you live.
Oh.
What do you think it was?
Well, how long? What was the distance?
It's 5K.
5K.
Yeah, 5K. Be kind.
16:45.
Okay, let's just have a reset for a moment, Deena. Like, let's just have a cautious reset of expectations. No, I didn't get anywhere near 16:45.
Oh, I was thinking you got all cocky. You got all cocky from your 6 times 3 minutes, and now you're doing park runs and you're challenging me live.
No. 18:28.
Okay, I'm writing it down. I've got to ask my coach if he thinks I'm fit enough to take on that challenge.
We should do a virtual challenge. 18:28. The interesting thing was that each mile got a little bit quicker. So, it's okay. I would like to run under 18 minutes in 2022, but I'm sort of running out of time.
Well, you have a month to go, and it seems like if you just go out a little harder, go out a lot harder.
Yeah. Thanks very much. I don't think I'd make it to the end if I went out much harder.
The American record holder in the men's half marathon is Ryan Hall. And he used to say before races, after my husband would give a pep talk on being consistent and going out conservatively and even paced is the most efficient way to run a marathon, Ryan Hall would stand up and say, go out as hard as you can because an object in motion stays in motion. And my husband would just cover his face like, no, don't tell them to do that.
Brilliant. Well, as I'm almost 2 minutes slower than you thought I'd be, I think we better move on with the show.
There's been so much running news in the last 2 weeks, but in China, a marathoner nicknamed Uncle Chen ran the Xinjiang Marathon while chain smoking a pack of cigarettes. Not only smoking, but he finished in 3 hours, 28 minutes. That's fast.
It is fast, but it feels a bit do you know what it feels like? It feels to me a little bit like when you have 2 bars of chocolate and then you try and compromise by having an apple and a tangerine. It's like, well, I've just eaten all that chocolate. I'm going to sort of make up for it by dosing on fruit.
Right.
And of course here, not that we would recommend chain smoking and running at the same time, but it must have been quite tricky to juggle lighting cigarettes at 3:28 speed.
Right. And in my mind, when I read this story on Runner's World, I was just thinking when you're running, you're breathing deeply. So he was breathing that smoke deep into his lungs, really taking it in. It seemed grosser than smoking a pack of cigarettes. It was twice as unhealthy.
Yeah. Well, he was Uncle Chen. So I'm wondering, has Auntie Deena ever smoked a cigarette in a race or even after a race?
Never. Never. I was going to say something snarky like our ex-president that said I smoked, but I didn't inhale. But no, I have spent my entire profession, even in California wildfires, if there's ash falling or smoke or the air quality is bad, I stay inside with the air purifiers on because my lungs have been so good to me. I would never do that to them. Have you smoked and ran?
No, not at the same time. But I can't claim to have not ever smoked. That would be something I wouldn't be honest about doing if I said I had. I'm not quite as pure as you, Deena. But we have a guy in the UK called Steve Way. He was the British Vet 40 marathon record holder and competed in the Commonwealth Games. He also came third in the Comrades Marathon, and he was very well known for finishing a great race with the biggest cigar you've ever seen. You'd often see Steve post-race puffing on a cigar. Not great, especially in the light of our next story in the Monterey Half Marathon. A runner who also happened to be a cardiologist helped save not one, but two runners' lives after they got into trouble and they needed emergency chest compressions and a defib. A very serious story covered in Canadian Running Magazine about the importance of, defibs being accessible on course, but also I don't know what the probability of somebody hitting the deck in front of you and needing CPR help is once, let alone twice in a race.
Right. And thankfully, these were two successful stories. Dr. Stephen Loam is a real live superhero running the Monterey Half with his children, his teenage children, and stopping, I think it was at mile 3, stopped for the first incident and right after crossing the finish line for the second one. Both success stories. The real thing that made me chuckle, knowing that these people were safe, of course, was that at the finish line, when he finally resuscitated this person, they opened their eyes and said, "What am I doing on the ground?" And then proceeded to stop their watch was the second thing. Right when they came to their senses. That is such a runner thing to do. Oh no, I'm at a crosswalk, stop my watch. My teammates do it. I keep mine running. So I have a 10-minute discrepancy sometimes with my teammates because I never stop my watch. It just seemed like such a runner thing to do, to stop your watch right when you come to your senses.
It is. I mean, look, I'm thankful that they're okay, and I'm grateful that the cardiologist was on hand, to look after them. Super important. But you're right. People do stop their watches at funny places. The other thing runners tend to do, you must have people that do this, is if they finish a run and it's not quite the distance that they want on their wearable, like it's 8.93 miles, they'll just run the 0.7 to make it a nice round 9, round around the garden or up and down the street or in the car park. So I love to finish a run on 9.99 miles.
I'm totally fine with finishing a run at 9.99 miles. But I also think that the mentality of someone that has to get that 10, it's so important for their confidence and their brain that go ahead and do it if you have to.
Yeah. Now, we spoke in the start of the show about your own turkey trot run. There was a load of turkey trots run all over the US for Thanksgiving. And the competitive spirit was in full flow in Troy. I don't know if you've seen this clip, but it was doing the rounds on social media. 2 runners sprinting, absolutely full gas towards the finish line. And both ended up hitting the ground really hard, just a stride or so before the finish line. It came about because there's these 2 guys and they are absolutely rinsing each other, and one of them just veers, right? And he's going towards the barrier, the crowd barrier, right on the finish line, right under the finish gantry. And just as he hits it, he goes crashing into the guy he's racing, and they both trip over and bundle into the crash barriers and land in a proper heap on the floor.
I think we need a redo on that race so that keep them in lanes, maybe keep these 2 gentlemen in lanes. But it was such a hard impact. They both fell to the ground. Luckily, they got up afterwards. They hit so hard. It was cringy. The only other time I cringed like that was sitting in the front row at a rugby game in Scotland. That's when you could hear skin hitting each other. You're like, oh, that's so gross. But this was one of those cringy moments. They hit so hard. And I've seen people on the track hold their line, put their arm out or veer into lane 2. I've never seen that in a road race.
Well, just how important is it? There's a really important safety element here, right? Because it is important to run in a straight line, for your own safety, but also for the safety of the people around you, especially in a busy race, in a busy event where there are lots of people around you. It was only these 2 guys. One of them actually got disqualified because he ran completely offline. And it got me thinking about, when I watched the Tour de France and the cycling and the sprint races where the pack has closed in on the finish line. They've got a K to go, and every single rider is following a lead out train. And that lead out train of, 4, 5, 6 riders, all part of the same team, is gunning with their sprinter on the back. And they are hurtling towards the line, trying to get the best line as they come in, past a final bend or whatever, into the finish line. And it's crucial that all the riders take the right line and don't impede the line of the other teams and the other riders. And clearly in running, it happens less frequently. Nonetheless, it does still happen, so I think hold your line towards the finish.
Good lesson, because we don't want headlines like you see in those crashes in the Tour de France. They could be so brutal. So hold your line, stay safe. Every race director's number one priority is the safety of the people participating. So stay safe, everybody, especially when we're doing all these holiday runs coming up. It's always the season for safety.
Hey, should we talk about European Cross? It's December
11th.
Yes, it's December the 11th, European Cross Country Championships. I think I said to you previously, my wife has done it several times. My sister's won it a couple of times. And my wife and my sister are heading out as part of the Team GB management set up for this European Cross Country Championships this month. And I asked you at the beginning, I felt a little bit embarrassed, I'm going to be honest. So let's pretend Deena isn't here for a moment. I asked Deena, have you ever done the World Cross, Deena? Yes. And what was your highest position, Deena? Second. In Dublin in 2002 and in Lucerne in 2003. So I'm publicly apologising to Deena for not knowing, and I should have known, I should have researched it before, that she was runner-up in the World Cross Country. Deena, running cross country was clearly important to you in terms of being ready for a marathon.
Yeah, I actually love cross country. It's my first love in this sport, but I feel like it is such a privilege to have it in the winter season because it really does prepare you well for track season, for marathons. It is a strength building sport. And so cross country was always incorporated into my most successful marathon years. So in the years that I trained and raced the cross country season, I also ran my best marathon. So it's a great balance, if you're going to do strength training, cross country is great strength training.
And what type of thing, what would that look like specifically? So, would that look like doing your long runs off-road? Or would that look like doing specific sessions on a field? What does it actually look like?
Right. So in cross-country training, you try to be specific, right? Specificity of training. So if you're training for the marathon, you get on the roads. If you're training for the track, you've got to do a track session every now and then. And for cross-country, we would do tempo runs on the dirt in the hills. So maybe a 4 to 6 mile tempo run. And then we would do grass repeats, 600-meter grass repeats. So your legs are a little tired, but you're teaching yourself to respond to the terrain and pop off of the grass quickly, even though there's divots and crevices to manipulate. I feel like it makes your ankles strong. It makes your ground contact time quicken. And so it does make you a much more efficient runner all the way around.
And I think one of the things cross-country training encourages, your legs to do is, it's the ever-changing nature of cross-country training and cross-country running that gives your legs that little bit of a shock response. And they have to recover, don't they, in the run. And then you have to learn, okay, I've got to recover to that shock response of that hard hill or that descent or that turn or that acceleration or the change in pace. I've got to learn to do that, and my body and my mind and my legs have got to recover. And I think that's a real strength to cross-country running, particularly when, you come to marathon running. But I'm always intrigued around the specifics because cross-country can be a bit more stop-start. The racing style is different. So, for example, the start, particularly at the World Cross Country, and, you've come second a couple of times, but as you'll know that start in a cross country, it's frenzied and fast, and you've got to get out the blocks pretty quickly. Whereas in a marathon, you're like, okay, I don't want to do that because if I do that, I'm going to pay the price. So although the events are really quite different in their execution, the preparation for cross country really helps in the racing of a marathon.
Right. And in the training itself, you could see if you're doing grass work to get that response, that positive response, that the first couple of times you're doing it, you're very clumsy, but in that 6 to 8 week block of training, you adapt so quickly. The human body adapts so quickly. And what I learned in cross country racing, especially at the World Championships, is after you crest a hill, you don't settle and roll off the backside. Everything is an opportunity to grind harder. And I had to learn that. I got it right in 2002 and 2003 when I got the silver medal at the World Cross Country Championships, that it was just at the starting line, just committing to being aggressive for the amount of time that you're out there. And then you could rest the rest of the day.
Yeah, see everything. What a lovely saying. And we can translate that into marathon running. See everything as an opportunity to grind. It's like this is an opportunity, see an opportunity. And you're right, cross-country running does exactly that for your body and your mind. This is the first time we've really dug into any detail about training or prep for marathon running. But I think we should do a little bit more. What about you?
That's great. I think that's what we should offer. All of our knowledge. This is what we're here to do, is to share our expertise and the expertise of people within the sport that we love.
For this Marathon Talk episode, we're talking to Gina Little. In 1983, Gina ran the London Marathon, her first one back then in just under 5 hours. She's done 38 London marathons since then, the most by any woman. And some 602 marathons later, in October this year, Gina ran the Chicago Marathon in 4 hours 37 minutes, and in doing so, bagged her Abbott World Marathon Majors 6-star medal at 77 years young. She became the oldest person ever to achieve the 6-star finish. Gina, welcome to the Abbott World Marathon Majors podcast, Marathon Talk.
Hi, Martin.
Well, we had a little bit of wrangling with tech to start this interview off, but we got it in the end, didn't we?
We have, yes.
So you're sat in your kitchen in Greenwich. I'm at home in Poole in Dorset. And I think I would love to start the conversation with you by taking you back to 1983. First London Marathon you ever ran. I think we said you were 38. And it wasn't quite as straightforward to bag an entry back then, was it?
No, it was not. To get an entry for the 1983 London Marathon, you had to have it was the first ones in the post box. That got counted, and I think you was allowed to put in 6 entries or 6 different people. So my friend and I decided, with lots of other people, that we would queue up outside the post office all night long. And this happened all over the country. Everyone queued outside so that they got their post in the post box when it opened at 6 o'clock. And that's how I got into my first London Marathon.
So I think you watched the race the year before in 82, right? And was that the inspiration for you?
That was, yeah. I'm just before the 6 mile. I live in Greenwich, just before the 6 mile marker. And they run along the top of my road. So, yes, I was watching. And I just thought, well, I did see this French guy. And he was running with a tray with a bottle of wine on it. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh, I think I can have a go at that. And yeah, so the next year, that was what you had to. I mean, you could have put it through the post, but you wouldn't have got in because everyone was queuing up.
So you queued and popped your entry in.
Yep. Then we went out for breakfast.
And then how did you find out?
They just wrote to you and said that you'd got in. Yeah. Yeah.
And we also had the conversation that running marathons, back then was not quite as common as it is now. You certainly didn't see as many people out running. It must have been, even more of a unique thing for you to be, one of the first people to do London. How exciting was it?
Well, it was very exciting, but also that we didn't know about training. No one knew. There was no books around to tell you how to do it. So we just made it up as we went along. We just went out, me and my friend just running. I mean, we obviously didn't do enough training because we'd got under 5 hours, but we managed to get round, run and walk. and we visited a few pubs on the way to use their toilets, etc. Because that wasn't all around on the first marathons.
Yeah, yeah. And can you remember your first finish? Can you remember what it felt like to finish? Was it on Westminster Bridge?
It was on Westminster Bridge. I finished a few on Westminster Bridge, yeah, which is a bit of an incline as you come up on the bridge, but just so emotional. So emotional. My family was all waiting there for me. Yeah, that's the only way I can say it. I know I was crying. It just didn't seem, it was just such a huge thing to do. And then in the evening, we went round to the local pub who'd sponsored us, because we got quite a lot of sponsorship that year, and got rather drunk, to say the least.
When you finished that first one, Gina, did you think, you know what, I am going to go on and I'm going to run 38 more and I'm going to run over 600 marathons? Was it that much of a thing for you at that point?
No, it wasn't. I just thought that, that was good. I didn't even think about doing it again until the applications come out. And then you could get in by the ballot, and because that must have been when the ballot started. And I was lucky enough to get in. And then when they got good for age, then I just got good for age in all the time.
Mm.
And now, because I've got that spirit of London, I get an entry anyway.
Get guaranteed entry, don't you?
I get a guaranteed, but I still use my good for age. I haven't used them entries yet. I'm always frightened that it might not happen.
Yeah.
That it might not come. So I just do my good for age.
I mean, running 38 London marathons, we'll talk more about your other majors as well, but in running 38 Londons, do they all merge in? Like, do they all kind of go into one? Often when I'm talking to someone about running a marathon, we might talk about, like, what was the highlights and what did they struggle with and things like that. But when you've done 38 Londons, how do you tell the difference year on year?
Yeah, no, it is a bit samey, because especially the first half, because I just know it like the back of my hand. It's just when I get to over Tower Bridge, well, I sort of know most of it now, but there are things that change, obviously.
Have you got any particular, like, years or events when you've run London which were, standouts? When you're sat there and you're having a cup of tea over the kitchen table with your friends and they ask you about your running and you go, oh yeah, in 1989 this happened and then 1991 this happened. Do you have anything like that?
I think probably when I did my first under 4 hours, that was the one that was really, really something. Because I trained with my friend and we just always run together, but she wasn't quite as fast as me. So this one particular year, I just decided that I was just going to run my own. And then to get under 4 hours just was amazing. It was amazing. And then I wanted to get obviously faster. And I did get under 3 hours a couple
Did
of
you?
times.
What year did you run under 3?
Oh, 1990 something. No, not under 3, under 3.5, sorry.
Okay, under 3.5.
3.5, yeah. I managed it a few times, but only once at London. But that was my best time at London.
And what is your personal best now?
Yeah, 3:26 at London Marathon.
Is it? And Gina, what about, I was thinking your range of marathon running, because you ran your first one back in 83 in just under 5 hours. But then, now in 2022, you're still running under 5 hours. I
know, and that's what I want to keep it at. That is just my, I don't want to go over 5 hours unless something particular, there's a particular race or something.
That is some longevity. Like sticking within a pretty narrow finish time for a very long time, 40 years.
But it never moves very much. It's just like 10 minutes or something. And that's as much as it moves.
Why do you think that is?
It will always be. I don't know. They would bet on me because they'd know what time I was coming in, or virtually. within a few minutes. Yeah. Yeah. And that's all. And people will follow me and they'll say to me afterwards, you just run so steady, and people run behind me that follow me. Not follow me, but they just hang on to me. I don't know that they're doing it, but they tell me afterwards that they've done it.
And do you think that running, because you're effectively doing something which is very important to finishing a great marathon, running economically, running consistently, running evenly, mile after mile after mile. Is there ever something that you practice, or is it something that you found just works for you to go ticking out the same pace?
I only seem to run at one pace. I don't like 10Ks and things because you have to put too much effort into it. It suits me to run long races. I mean, I've done lots of ultras as well, and it just suits me. I'm not a fast twitcher or whatever you call it.
Well, you've done a 3:26. You're pretty rapid. Do you think that because just having a span of 40 years, for running, do you think it's the running that has enabled you to have that longevity, in itself? Because, look, I meet some 77-year-olds, perhaps can't get down the stairs in their house very capably, or, walk to the end of the street. Do you think running has kept you running? Do you know, or do you think you're blessed with some good genes?
I think I have been blessed with good genes, but I think also I've always been a bit sporty. I've always done some form of keep fit or something. And I do yoga at least once a week, which I always think I do like a stretch every morning. When I get up, I do a few minutes stretching. And if I wake up in the night, I stretch. I don't know why, I just do it. It just seems so automatic to do it.
Yeah, do you think that's contributed to your ability to, keep running for a long time? Is there anything else that you do that's contributed to that 40 years of being able to run?
Yeah, I mean, I do. If I'm injured, I'll swim, but I don't get injured very often. But I do like to swim. I don't cycle, but I don't go to the gym, but I go to classes at the gym, and I'll do body pump or a hip program. So I do I think 3 classes a week of different things, core stability.
So you find that, often I hear, as, I said to you before we started recording, I'm, early 50s, and I've noticed that things are a little bit more creaky than they used to be. And it takes me a bit longer to get going, and I don't run as fast as I want to or used to. And, so what I'm hearing you is, you're telling me, right, well, do some stretching, it doesn't have to be loads, but a little bit regularly, move your body in different ways, and that's going to help keep you running for longer.
Well, I obviously have slowed, but I know I still do a fairly good time, but obviously with age you are going to. But yeah, I just think you just need, if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. So just keep using it.
You've not slowed by that much. Your first one was not that much different to the one you've just done.
Yeah, but I think that was the first one. Nobody knew about training or anything. That was just a get round one, if you like.
Do you ever think, I wonder what you could have done if you'd have do you ever look back and go, well, if I'd taken this running up when I was 25 and, I'd walloped it really hard, what do you think that would have looked like?
Well, I do think, because someone said to me, because I don't do any special training. I don't do fast work, hill work, nothing. I just go out and run. I just sometimes think if maybe I'd have done proper training, I could have done a lot better. But I'm not unhappy about what I do or what I've done.
Yeah. So when you ran in Berlin was your 600th this year,
yeah.
600th marathon, 4 hours and 32. You also ran London this year in 4 hours 50 and Chicago in 4:37. But it was when you ran Chicago that you got your Abbott World Marathon Major 6-star.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, but you became the oldest person ever to achieve that. How did that make you feel? Hey, well done, you're the oldest to ever.
I didn't realise it because Chicago, they'd got in touch with me. And I met them on the Saturday afternoon for a bit of an interview. And then they met me at the line when I finished.
Brilliant. Did you know that was going to happen then?
Well, I knew that they was going to meet me at the line because they told me on the Saturday, but I didn't know that before I went. And I didn't know that I was the oldest woman either until it all happened when I got there.
And how did it make you feel?
I couldn't believe it because I'd just had big celebrations doing my 600 in Berlin and then London. It just seemed to be snowballing and something else was happening. Now I've got this another record. And because when I went to Berlin, I've done Berlin 32 times, and they said to me, if you come next year, you equal the record here.
Wow.
So it's everything I was doing in these couple of weeks was another record, and I didn't know where it was all coming from. It was just mind-blowing.
What's that made you? Has that given you any thoughts around, okay, what's left? Because sometimes I talk to people, I meet runners, and they haven't done anything like the number of marathons, particularly in the same place that you have. But they lose a little bit of motivation, or they don't want to do it again because they've done it so many times. When you've done Berlin, 32 times and London 38 times and over 600 marathons, like what else is there to do? What keeps you going back?
Well, because it's a lot of friends we've got in Berlin now that we obviously know they come over to do London and we go over to do Berlin. It's a social thing as well. And yeah, I mean, they look after us and we look after them when they come over here. I don't know, I'm going to Lanzarote this weekend, and this is going to be the 8th time I've done Lanzarote. But it's because I belong to the 100 Marathon Club in England as well. And a lot of the 100 Marathon Club meet in Lanzarote at Christmas, and we just all have a lovely time together. It's part of the race and part meeting all the rest of the people.
What would you say are the main reasons that you've been running so long then?
I think the friends I've made, the places I've visited, and the camaraderie of all the different runners that I've met over the years. People just give you so much support.
I'm assuming London is the marathon you've done the most. Have you done any others more than you've done London?
No, not at all.
So London is the most, age 38. Of those 602 that you've done now, is there any that you think at the drop of a hat, I'd go back and I would just do that again every week,
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind going back to Chicago, to be truthful, but I've just run in so many I've run in 46 different countries. So
it's just taking you all over the world.
It's taken me all over the world. I mean, when Tokyo joined, I don't even think Tokyo had joined this thing and I'd done it in 2010, I think. I think it was before it even happened.
What was it about Chicago, Gina, that you think, oh, that was so fantastic? Apart from it being, your final 6-star medal, what was it about Chicago that you went, that was just fantastic?
I don't know. It was just a lovely race. I think also it was a relax because I'd done Berlin, London, and then it was Chicago. I think, now I can relax and enjoy Chicago. The others, I was a bit worried. Am I pushing myself too much? Am I going to be able to do it? But once I'd done London, got to Chicago, I just relaxed and enjoyed it.
Can you remember any parts on the route that you found particularly inspiring?
No, I know when I got to 25 miles or just over, I was a bit concerned because I thought, what's going to happen when I cross that line? And that was the first time I walked. I got to a drink station and I thought, I'm just a few seconds just to get it around my head because I didn't know what to expect when I crossed the line. But I knew they were going to be there.
You've already mentioned like that importance of social connection and the experience of going to different races around the world. So the travel, the camaraderie of being with your friends and the friendships that you've developed around the world, over the last sort of 40 years of running. But, for me personally, I think running also helps us. Like it helps us personally in so many ways. Like at what times has running been that friend for you? At what times has running really helped you?
Well, the main time was I lost my husband in 2000 and I'd just done my 100th marathon before then. And then just the running well, it seemed like they took me in their arms and encouraged me to do more. And that was when my numbers started picking up because I was just doing a marathon every week. More, sometimes I'd do 18 straight off and then I'd have a week off or something. But yeah, that was the low point in my life. And then everyone just seemed to as I say, just take me in their arms, and they would call me up. We're going to do this race. Are you going to come? We're coming to pick you up, and all that sort of thing.
And so you've lived in the same. Have you lived in Greenwich? Like, were you in Greenwich in 2000? Greenwich is
Yeah.
So on the London course.
On the London course, yeah.
And why is it that that's a very difficult? It's a difficult thing for anybody to face, isn't it? Like, the death of a partner, the death of a spouse. The way in which running can hold you when you need to be held.
Exactly, yeah.
How did it do that?
But everyone just supported me so much. Because I had 2 sons, I mean, they weren't young, they were older. But I don't know. I mean, from my own running club, they would just come down. Well, I obviously didn't go for a while. And then they said, right, come on, you've got to get going. And they would just come and pick me up and take me up there. And then gradually things just improved, obviously.
So you've done about 500 marathons since then?
Yeah.
That's an awful lot of running. How much running do you do in a week to get ready for that?
I don't do that much running. I just run Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Saturday and Sunday.
So 4 times a week?
And if I'm doing something, a half marathon or a marathon on Sunday, then I don't run on Saturday. And that would only be park run anyway.
And do all those runs, Gina, always look the same in the 4 runs of the week? Do you ever do anything different? I mean, you must know your routes inside out.
I do, yeah. Yeah, because I live right near the river, so I use the river quite a lot.
Yeah.
And into Greenwich Park quite a lot, yeah. So I would do 6 or 7 miles on a Tuesday morning, come home, get a shower, and then I usually go to my core class. And then on Wednesday, I would go to my running club, and we'd do probably 7, 8 miles. And that's about it. If I haven't got anything big on Saturday and the people are running from the running club, then I'll join them. But if they're running in the woods and I've got something big coming up, then I don't go in the woods with them.
Because it's a bit harder when you do that?
Well, because of the tree roots, and obviously my eyesight's not as brilliant as it once was, and I just have to be more careful. So, yeah.
Do you have, as we're just getting to the end of 2022 this year, and you've had a really busy year. You've had a really busy last 22 years at 500 marathons across that 20 years. What do you think you would like to do next year?
Oh, well, I've already got Seville booked in February.
Oh, have you done that one before?
I did it years and years ago, and it just hammered down with rain the whole race. And I remember running in a bin bag the whole time. The roads were just flooded. They do say when it rains in Spain, it rains. And it did that day. So, yeah, so I haven't been back there, but I'm going to go this year.
Seville, what else?
Seville, and then I've got Cyprus, Paphos in March.
Yeah.
Brighton, if it's on, and London in April. And
so that's
May,
4 marathons before we've even got to April.
Yeah. And then May, the Leeds rugby player who's got...
motor neuron disease.
Motor
yes.
neuron disease.
Yeah.
They've got a race for him. So I've joined that. That's in May. And Berlin in September. That's up to now.
So that'll be a 33rd Berlin.
Yeah.
Does anybody ever say, like when you're having a chat about running, does anyone ever say to you, oh, I did a marathon in somewhere, and you're like, oh, I've not done that one?
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often. But yeah, occasionally that happens, yeah. I was talking to someone and they mentioned a San Sebastian, and I thought, oh, that sounds quite nice. I haven't done that one. It's in Spain, and I've run quite a lot in Spain. But obviously when I do them, I like to be able to do ones that are near, that have got a decent airport. You haven't got to get a car and everything. So you just want to land and be in that city. But I wouldn't mind doing Rome again. The only thing about Rome, it was so many cobbles. That's what I found about Rome. And that you did run over an awful lot of cobbles.
Have you done the Tromsø Midnight Marathon?
No.
So that's one that takes place in Tromsø, and it's at night, but it's light because of the way that the daylight hours work at that time.
We've done, there's one in Belgium that you can do as well, and I've done that a few times. That starts about 8 o'clock at night, so you finish in the dark.
What about the Medoc Marathon, the one where they have the wine on the way round? Have you done that? Have you done that?
Yeah. Yes,
This is like a game, isn't it? I'm trying to it's a game. I'm going to name some marathons, see if see if you've done them. It's not a marathon, but what about Comrades?
I've done it twice.
Have you?
Up and down, yes.
Okay, right then.
That is fantastic. That is just. Have you done it?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Amazing.
Cape Town. What about Cape Town?
Yes, done it.
You've done Cape Town.
I've done 2 oceans.
Yeah. Cape Town and Cape Town Marathon.
Yes.
Sydney?
No.
Oh,
I've done Sydney 10K. Yeah. It's just such a long way, isn't it?
It's Sydney Marathon. So, of the 6 Abbott World Marathon majors, I daren't ask you, but I'm assuming your favourite is London, right? Because you've done it 38 times and it's on your doorstep, and there must be nothing like it.
Well, that's why I do it, isn't it? Yeah, because it's so local, and people would expect me to do it.
Of the other 5, tell us. Okay, this was the one I enjoyed the most, and tell me why.
There's something about all of them. And when I went to Tokyo, not many people had been to Japan at that time, or not that I knew of anyway. And it was raining at the start, and all the Japanese were standing at the start with their umbrellas up. I mean, that's just
keep it dry.
Incredible. Yeah, but we wouldn't stand when you was lining up, would you? But that's the sort of thing the Japanese do anyway. And then when I went to Boston, I did the Boston 100.
Mm-hmm.
And on the Wednesday, it was thick snow, and we was helping clear the roads.
So there's so many experiences that
there's always something. Yeah,
running has brought you. So finally, Gina, if you weren't running marathons, what do you think you'd be doing?
I'm not sure, but I would still like to be seeing the world.
Yeah,
I do like a bit of travel, so yeah, definitely.
Do you do anything else other than run?
Well, I do my other sports.
What, like the yoga and the cork and the conditioning?
I used to play darts, but we're done with the pubs. A lot of pubs have closed now, haven't they? Like to go out to eat and go and stay in nice hotels. No, I don't really do anything else, I don't think. Well, I've got a family, I've got grandchildren, so I'm always proud of those.
Yeah. Do any of them run?
No.
Do you think they will?
No, the boys. Oh, they did try once, but they both play football, so no.
Yeah.
No, they didn't. No.
No, that you haven't inspired them to start it up.
Well, my granddaughter, she's a bit of a runner. She runs, but she's just gone to uni now, so I don't know how long that's going to last. If she'll still do it while she's there.
So what about this one? Given that there's not many marathons that you haven't done, what about trying to convince, one of your grandchildren to do a marathon with you?
Well, I think if my youngest one, she could well be talked into it, I think, because she's quite sports minded. She's a bit like me in the head. Yeah.
Yeah, my friend Tom Williams did Comrades with his dad. His dad was in his 70s, and it was a little bit the other way around. So his dad wasn't a runner and Tom was a runner. So it was Tom who encouraged his dad to go and do it. And it was one of the most amazing experiences for both of them to do it together, kind of very inspiring for reasons to do a run other than the run,
Exactly. Yeah, no, that is lovely. That is lovely. So they obviously finished is it 12 hours now? So it used to be 11 hours, didn't it?
Yeah, they did. They finished under the cutoff.
They did, yeah.
But when you've been running such a long time, sometimes, certainly for me, I find I have to find new ways to motivate myself. But you seem to be able to just keep turning up. I know.
It doesn't bother me. People say to me, what do you think about? I don't really know what I think about, but I obviously think about something. But I don't people say, don't you get bored? But no, I don't get bored. I mean, a lot of these marathons now that just go up and down the side of the river or up and down a pathway, I don't like those, no. I like proper marathons.
With a bit of adventure. It seems
Yeah,
like the
exactly.
marathon, and particularly the Abbott World Marathon Major Series gave you an opportunity to, travel the globe, meet some new friends, run in some amazing places.
Exactly, yeah. So I'm very proud of my medal.
So you should be. So, okay, final question for you, Gina. When you are 80... sorry.
No.
When you are 80, what are you going to do to celebrate?
Well, hopefully, if I'm still running, it'll be London Marathon, because my birthday's always just before it.
So we're gonna do London on your 80th.
Or just after, probably. Just after.
Just
Hopefully.
after your 80th. I bet you have a load of your club with you doing it as well, I expect.
I would, yeah.
Yeah, that would be lovely. Get a load of people running with you, celebrate your 80th. So we got 3 years?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we look forward to seeing you on the start line for that. That's going to be a cracker.
That would be.
Gina, thank you for having a chat and bringing us up to speed about your running. It's been lovely to speak to you.
And you, Martin. Thank you.
In each show, we'll be featuring an Abbott World Marathon Major's 6 questions with a 6-star finisher. We'll be sharing with our 6-star finishers a regular opportunity to feature on the show. And today, our 6-star finisher is Elena Fabre. She got her 6th star in 2018. Her most memorable World Marathon Major experience was the completion of her journey and receiving her 6-star medal. It's really like the summation of all of them together. So I feel like that was a broad answer. Her favorite iconic landmark was crossing the finish line in Boston because it paved the way to pursue the other World Marathon Majors. The thing she wished she knew before she got started was that these races were here and she would have started them when she was younger. I loved that answer. Which course gave her the most support? She said Boston because her husband and her brother from the Philippines came to watch and cheer. And her fastest marathon was in New York City. She ran 5 hours, 42 minutes, and 20 seconds. Good job, Elena.
Right, that's almost it for episode 5. Deena, we've got just one more show until Christmas. I can't believe it. It doesn't seem right, does it? One more show until Christmas? What?
No, I immediately think like, oh my gosh, I have so much shopping to do. I have so much baking to do. It started, as soon as I saw that in our show notes, I immediately started sweating.
Yeah, well, let's do a quick comparison. How many Christmas presents have you bought already?
Probably about 6 to 8.
Wow, okay, so I'm sat on big fat 0. Nothing, haven't even thought about it. It hasn't even entered my mind. Martin,
what's the best Christmas gift you ever received? Could it be running related? Maybe it should be running related.
No, I don't know that it is. I'm not sure what it... Well, it would have to change throughout the years. So the one I remember from a kid is like a bike, a racing bike. Like a old school racing bike with a steel frame. It wasn't very old, and like a razor sharp plastic saddle that you couldn't sit on for very long, but it kind of looked sleek and fast. I remember that. It was an amazing gift. I couldn't have been very old, maybe 12. And I got a racing bike. And then probably as a grown up, I got a record player. Father Christmas bought me a record player one year, old school, to like knock out my vinyl on.
Wow. Christmas has been good. You were a nice kid, not a naughty kid.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. Just one more show to Christmas on December the 16th. And so much better than a chocolate advent calendar is the Abbott World Marathon 12 days of Christmas tree challenge as part of the Global Run Club. Last time we chatted, Deena, I said I was looking for something to do. And Danny at Abbott World Marathon Majors has come up with the 12 days of Christmas tree challenge.
It's such a great idea. So I immediately logged on to accept this challenge, and starting on December 13th and taking you all the way to Christmas Eve, the idea is that you start with 1 mile on day 1, then 2 on day 2, 3 up to 6 miles. hang at the top for one more day and with another 6, and then work your way back down to 1 mile, finishing on Christmas Eve. I have taken on this challenge. Are you going to, Martin?
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a run streak, isn't it? A little bit of a pre-Christmas run streak. Yes, to take part, you go to globalrunclub.com. If you're not already a member, sign up there, sync your watch or app, and join the challenge. Deena, apart from getting ready for the 12 days Christmas tree challenge and also all your Christmas shopping, what are you doing?
Oh, I'm wrapping up my trip here in Austin, Texas at the running event, and just going to enjoy some time at home for the next couple of weeks. I really need to decompress and decorate for the holidays. And to me, that's part of the joy of it, is just feeling festive and warm and reaching out to family and friends across the globe to let them know what they mean to me. What are you going to be up to in the next 2 weeks before we chat again?
Well, I shall be properly grinching it up as we launch into Christmas. Oh, I shall be bar humbugging around the streets of Poole. No, I'm joking, of course. I'll be making sure I've got all my Christmas shopping done, really carefully wrapped. I am the world's most rubbish present wrapper, but yeah, really all my Christmas shopping done. We've got letters to Father Christmas to write for my children who are still young, of course. And if there's any young children listening, yes, Father Christmas does still exist. Of course he exists. And then what else am I doing? I am running 16:44 at Park Run in the next time I have a go at it.
I love it. So I'm taking on your challenge. I'm taking on the Christmas tree challenge from the Global Run Club. And I have some advice, Martin. You should give your child £1 for every present they wrap for you. You have children to do that.
£1?
Yeah.
Like to wrap my presents?
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to the bar humbug. I'll do that myself. Right, come on. That's it. That is all for episode 5 of Marathon Talk, powered by Abbott World Marathon Majors. Enjoy the run, wherever it takes you.